I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to introduce Marketplace Connections and who we are. We're all about business connections. I've already connected a couple of business cards today. We hope that you network. Please leave your cards on the table. Put your cards on the name tag table out front. I've already heard of different connections that have taken place as a result of last month's meeting. Ian, raise your hand, right? Many of you checked with Ian on the wonderful stuff that Ian does. Relationships are very important for us in Marketplace Connections. I think relationships are kind of the stuff of life, frankly. We have a discovery group that meets in Bellevue that Ian is a part of. We had an incredible discussion on a book Tuesday of this week called Vision Blockers. Eric Scroggins is the author of this book. We had one of those discussions where I felt like we really went deep relationally and spiritually. I just feel like we had such a great time. Elisa was there. Would you second that? Absolutely. Yeah, it was just a very, very powerful time. Marketplace Connections is about all three of these things. We feel like that's our contribution to the business and professional community. So our great hope is that all three of those things take place for you. I have known Jill for a couple of years now, and I had the privilege of going to India with Jill. Was that in March? Where are you? There you are. I got to see Jill teach in India at a university there. She had these students literally eating out of her hand because they got to eat what's at your table. And Jill will talk a little bit more about this, but she cooked this in 100-degree heat in India. It turned out good. It didn't quite meet your expectation, did it? Jill is an author. She's an entrepreneur. Her husband, Greg, works for a law firm in downtown Seattle. And you're really going to get a treat today in more ways than one. It's a wonderful entrepreneurial story. So Jill, come up and share with us, please.
What a joy it is to be in Edmonds. I love this town, and my husband and I just have gone through a year of hunting for a place to live, and Edmonds was first on our list. But that's not where we ended up. But it is just a place that we've always dreamed of living. It's just a little above, our ability at this stage in life, where we're looking at retirement probably pretty soon. So, but it is such a lovely community, and I do envy you all for getting to be here. Thank you, John. We miss Pat today. I don't know if some of you have met John's wife, Pat Sween, delightful woman. And she's really a partner in so many ways to John. So I hope that you all have an opportunity to meet her in the future. She's a great, fun, energetic woman.
She's a fun one.
She is. She's a blast. Now, you guys give me a wave if I wander away from the microphone, because I like to move around a lot when I talk, but I can do this. I know I can. And John, are you going to give me a 5-minute? Because, I get sick of hearing myself talk, but when I talk about the toffee business, I also get lost because it is such a fun story, and that's why John asked me to come here and talk to you today. It's a Cinderella story. That's the best way to describe it. How many of you knew 2 months ago that you would be sitting in this room today? Okay, couple. How many almost didn't make it here today? Right? Okay, so why is that? Because there is a reality of a thing called the unexpected. And we all live with the presence of the unexpected in our lives every day. So that's what happened to me with this toffee business. It was totally unexpected and unplanned. And I'm going to set the stage a little bit. I learned in India when John and I were there. I was there for 6 weeks, did a couple of different campuses, teaching entrepreneurial business to college students. It was a complete blast, and I encourage you to speak with John about perhaps going at some point. It was a life-changing opportunity and a really wonderful experience. I learned I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'd never heard that term before, but one of our Indian co-professors used that term and gave a description to the students. And I thought, down in my pit of my stomach, I thought, that's me. How come I've never heard that term before? It's true. I started working at age 8. Not really because I chose to, but because family circumstances required it. At about age 15, harvested, processed, and marketed the family apricot crop with my 14-year-old sister. Now, we had been doing it our whole lives, so it was kind of second nature. You know, you get up at 5:30 and you just do what needs to be done. But that was the work ethic that my parents and my Italian grandparents taught me at a young age. So that really gave me a launch pad for my compulsion. And like a lot of you, I have a hunch, you see business opportunities everywhere, don't you? Come on, I want to know. Who's there? Do you kind of walk around and you go, ooh, wow, somebody should do that? Oh, hey, I don't know why nobody's done that yet. Right? That's just the way your mind works. It's a blessing. It's a gift. It makes life exciting, I think. So early on, my entrepreneurial energy really was based on the veracity of that statement, necessity is the mother of invention. In truth, I had experienced a lifetime of unexpected circumstances by about 40, culminating in the publication of a book, which was also an unexpected experience. And the title is Start and Grow Your Faith-Based Nonprofit. Now, I didn't write that book voluntarily. It did grow out of my work experience as a nonprofit manager and a graduate school program at Seattle U, and the crossing of the perfect storm elements. It all came together, and I became kind of an expert on faith-based and government partnerships right at a really critical time. So, book got published by Jossey Bass, totally unexpected, but it was maybe the thing I'm most proud of next to my children in this world. Like many of you, though, some of my unexpected stuff isn't positive. I grew up in a really unstable home environment. My brother was killed when I was 8. He was 10. We were best friends. It was a horrible tragedy. I attended college only by working 2 jobs, constantly working. And I didn't dare not graduate on time because I couldn't afford an extra semester of tuition. So, and then harshly, I was uprooted from my beloved San Francisco for my husband's work, which brought us here to Seattle. So here I am. When our youngest, who's now 24, was about to graduate from high school, I had accumulated a really interesting, eclectic work resume. And I was, chomping at the bit. Took a couple years off to be the football mom, which was fun, but, that gets old too. So I'm thinking, what's next for me? I have an empty nest coming. I could go back to school, get another graduate degree. I could return to my previous career in the nonprofit realm. I could write another book. I could commit to a full-time volunteer ministry. I love to work, and so I was ready to embrace just about anything. And I remember for that month there, after the graduation in May and, early June, and I'm starting to chomp at the bit, this little voice behind me, maybe some of you also have that little voice sometimes, said, no, you're not going to do any of that stuff. And I thought, well, okay, I'm open. And that little voice said, make up a batch of your famous toffee. And I wrestled with that over a couple of weeks because it was June. You don't make toffee in the summer. It just doesn't work. Yeah, we tried it in India. It just doesn't work. So here it is, June. And I'm really, but I have learned at this point to trust that little voice. So I made up the toffee. I'm thinking, okay, now what? It's too simple, you know. I'm the queen of tough challenges. I specialize in that. I want to tackle the big stuff. I make tummer. Heat and humidity really ruin the product. And there's already lots of toffee out there. Most of it's really bad toffee. Has anybody had bad toffee, kind that sticks in your teeth? You know, avoid that. You're welcome to open those little bags, by the way, while we're chatting. There's a few extra scattered around, so if you go through yours, you might be able to nab one on an empty table. You know, we also, my husband and I discussed this when we were looking at my next venture. We did not want to incur any business debt, so that was off the table. Not going to, you know, go out and get a loan to do this. Whatever I do, we're doing with what we have. And lots of other roadblocks. Having experienced that, again, so many times, I knew to trust that voice. I had had unexpected successes in other realms. The book was one, but there are a lot of others. So I obeyed the voice. And I really started this whole process backwards. And I've been told that 100 times. I had no business plan outlined. I had no startup savings in place. I had no consultant retained. Now, I did retain one later, but I had no market research performed, and I had no focus group taste testing scheduled. So what in the world was I doing? Within this context of making toffee, I had only used my kitchen stove, and I knew enough that you'd have to have a professional kitchen if this was going to actually launch. So our daughter, dear thing, was working at Tully's at the time and said, Mom, you know, Tully's loves cottage industry. Why don't you, you know, take some over there? So I thought, why not? Packed up a few pounds, went online, found out who the marketing director was, merchandising people, made a phone call, a few emails, didn't hear anything. So I drove over there. You know, the Rainier building that used to have the big T on it? Dropped it off at the front desk. Said, you know, I don't know if anybody's interested in this stuff, but I just had this hunch I should drop this off to you. And it had my contact info and my, you know, bio and the ingredients of the product. 4 ingredients, by the way. If you see toffee with anything more than 4 ingredients, don't buy it. We'll talk about that later. A week later, I get a phone call. Hey, why don't you come in? We like your stuff. In fact, we like it so much, don't come without another 5 pounds. We talked, great folks down there at Tully's. We made some arrangements. We discussed packaging and delivery and storage. And then they did their reorg. Anybody remember that? It was so sad, back in 2009. So they said, no, don't worry. We're just going to put you on hold for a couple weeks. Well, who hasn't heard that? So I'm just assuming, okay, that's fine. You know, I did what I had to do. Well, after that exciting chain of events, I thought, there's something else out there. It's not this. I misread the little voice, right? The daughter comes back. She says, well, wait a minute. What about Whole Foods? They're all about cottage industry natural products. I said, oh, come on. They'd never look at me. They don't. Come on. They have everything they need. They'd never look at my product. Well, Whole Foods markets, Whole Foods in Bellevue particularly, started Jill's English Toffee. Walked in with my little sandwich bag full of milk chocolate with almonds. It's the only flavor I made at that time. I ended up making 7, maybe 8 flavors. And I walk up to the beautiful cabinet there with all of the gorgeous desserts, you know, and you just drool. And there was a lady behind there. Actually, she was younger than myself, but she looked like a queen. She was tall, lithe, bright, sparkly eyes. She had a little hat on just right. And that official black apron, you know, which we all kind of get intimidated by. She said, hey, can I help you? I said, well, maybe. Is your manager in? And she said, oh, I'm the manager. They call me team leader, So just know that. They have special names at Whole Foods for all their people. Nothing as lame as manager. She comes around the cabinet. She says, what can I do for you? And I kind of sighed and said, well, maybe nothing, but I was just wondering if you would try this stuff I make and tell me what you think. It's about ½ pound in a little Ziploc sandwich bag. And she looked at it, and she starts asking me questions. And she opens it up, and she starts nibbling. Just like some of you, but not very many, are doing right now. And we're talking about, my butter that comes only from grass-fed cows, and my nuts are all organic, and, I use cane sugar. I never would consider using beet sugar, and I'm saying all the key components that go into this product, and before I know it, she's eaten the whole bag. There's not one little partial nut left. And I'm waiting for the news, you're close. It's you're going to get there, I know it. Just give it another year or two. I'm just waiting for that. I'm just thinking, that's so kind of her to take this time with me. She says, okay, looks me in the eye. She says, English toffee's my favorite thing in the world. I said, oh, great. I said, oh, I bet you've had a lot of it, huh? And she said, yep, a lot of it. And this is the best I've ever had. And I was not sure I heard her correctly. She said, I have to have this in my store. Just like that. What the heck? How does that happen? Totally unexpected, right? She's my angel. We're still friends. She just had a baby girl last year. So I have this underlying principle of my life. When I sense a leading in a certain direction or a purpose, and I'm not entirely sure it's valid, I walk toward that idea in little increments, in little steps, and then I reevaluate along the way, okay, is this wise and is it right? I pause now and then, just to double check. And then I progress a little bit further down that path, and then I do that again. Usually I perform a SWOT analysis at some point. You guys know that one, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? Because for sure I don't want to go too far without calculating all of that. Sometimes it's really clear, no, this isn't the right thing. No, this is not the best use of my time, talent, and treasure. And that's okay. And I think that's something that a lot of people stumble over. Is it okay to say, this is not the right time for this endeavor? That's actually, I think, a sign of maturity and good judgment. It's okay, because it just means you're going to redirect in another way. And I'm sure all of you have way more sophisticated and effective methods of figuring that out, but I'm cottage industry, remember? So, from the day I met Holly in the Bellevue Whole Foods to the day this product, which looked very much like what's on your table, ended up on the shelves of Whole Foods, was 4 months. To me, that was an eternity. To them, it was lightning speed. So it all ended up okay. Then, in that 4 months, I had to hire the consultant, apply for all the licenses, find a professional kitchen, design the brand and logo and the packaging, and work on scaling. I mean, I had never made more than 20 pounds at a time. We're talking, sometimes I had to make 800 pounds a day. Wow. Delivery systems, which was just me driving around with the boxes in my car, and invoices hot off my printer. Hiring help, choosing suppliers, that was a huge one. Bookkeeping needs marketing beyond Whole Foods Market, because if you're an entrepreneur, you think, okay, wait a minute, this is working this well, this way. What if we, multiplied it by 10? two principles that guided me to this point. Number one, work to your strengths. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I didn't know it at the time, but I knew what my strengths were. And I love creating something from nothing. Does anybody else love that feeling? It just gives you goosebumps, doesn't it? It's such a rush. And then number two, I've learned to tune in to opportunities. They're everywhere. They're all over this room, I can guarantee you, right, John? What's the worst that can happen when we do that? What's the worst thing that can happen? Seize the day. Walk through the door. But don't forget to provide a way out for yourself in case it's needed. And again, that's okay. It's not failure. It's just good judgment. So by Thanksgiving of 2009, this toffee was in the 5 local Whole Foods markets. And a lot of other places too. And it's kind of a blur right now, how it all happened. And I'm just barely keeping up with orders at that time. And then the totally unexpected thing happens. It's a tremendous success. Have you ever had success where you go, oh great, now what do I do? Because you don't want to let go of all you accomplished, right? But you know that jumping up to that next level requires a lot more than what you have available at your fingertips at the moment. That's where we were. And I say we because we were a team. My family, and I hired 4 friends who had a little extra time and wanted some Christmas spending money. They helped me package. And then the demoing. Now that's the favorite part of doing this job, was being in the stores with my little table. Being in the store where people would come up to my table and I had my little sign and I had my cutting board and I was chopping up and putting in the little solo cups. Maybe some of you even saw me. It's possible, over a 3-year period. Just hearing the folks rave about the product, especially men. I would have men come up and say, oh no, I don't eat toffee. My favorite people to come to my table were those guys. I'd say, oh, you've never had my toffee. And that is a challenge, right? What do men do when you're presented with a challenge? Oh yeah? Okay, let me have it. Especially the white pecan, which was my signature toffee. I made it for my mother, who loves white chocolate and pecan, which I don't. But the flavor blend with that particular toffee was to die for. A man stood there in front of my table for about 20 minutes eating, and he just said, my life is forever changed. No joke. I'm not exaggerating. That's exactly what he said. It was so much fun. So then in December, 1st or so, it hits me. The Olympics are coming to Whistler in a couple months. So I got my friend, Christy, who had nothing to do, loaded up her car with 14 cases of toffee. She drove up to Whistler and sold all of them and came back with an order for 5 times that much. Look at the red ribbon on those packages. It says Nestor's Market. Anybody go up there to BC and shop at Nestor's Market? They ordered my toffee for about 4 months, pre and post Olympics. So I needed my own space, and I hunted down the owner of the Brown Bag Cafe. Now, if you're not from the east side, you probably aren't familiar with it, but it's a wonderful home cooking type of a restaurant. It had sat empty in Redmond for 2 years. The owner was trying to sell it, and the city of Redmond makes business so difficult for the small business owner. He just finally closed it down. He said, I'm not going to deal with them anymore. Oh, you found it. There I am. Can't see it very well, but that's Whole Foods Market in Bellevue. So he finally agreed to let me rent his kitchen, just his kitchen. Didn't need the whole restaurant. It was an old house, belonged to the first mayor of Redmond. Beautiful. you architects, you would have had a heyday in there. Beautiful wooden built-ins, gorgeous old fireplace. There's a picture in there somewhere. So he finally agreed to rent to me. I had to replumb the whole house, and I had to buy a new stove, which I got from a church here in Edmonds. And I went at it for the second season. Got a knock on the door one day. I'm cooking away. 3 guys from the city are there and saying, okay, well, wait a minute. You're in a retail space. You need to open for retail. And I just laughed. I said, are you kidding? I can't even keep up with my wholesale business. Well, that's a city ordinance. And you got to, put a sign out front. And here's the application. So can you give me a couple weeks to put together a retail store right before Christmas? Well, we did. There it is. Again, hard to see. There's about maybe 3 or 4 pictures of the store. The little fireplace was my favorite. It looked like Grandma's candy shop. I had so much foot traffic in that store. By the end of the Christmas season, that little store did more in sales than all of my wholesale retail outlets. It was amazing. It was unexpected. It was such a joy. It was, okay, here's a couple more principles and then I'm going to finish. Learn what you don't know all along the way. How do I do X? Could I do Y better another way? How long before the chocolate blooms if it's not tempered? It's a method of curing chocolate. How do I calculate shelf life? And what's the ideal price point? And case count? And should I go with the distributor? And my personal favorite, what don't I know to ask you? Has anybody ever asked you that before? Great question. Demonstrate excellence at every level. Reject good enough. The craft or brown cardboard boxes were not good enough. I got the white ones. They're much more professional looking. I stamped the name on the ribbon because it makes the retailer feel important and it's good advertising for them. All those little details are significant. Fast forward 2 years, unexpectedly, couldn't do it anymore. Even with Starbucks wanting to collaborate on my mocha flavor, they did. They had my mocha at a Star Foods, several of the Starbucks people, and they gave me their cards and said, because I used their Via in my chocolate, they said, this is great for Starbucks. Let's work together. Alaska Airlines. I have stickers from the Alaska Airlines contract. They wanted 40,000 units of toffee of my personal favorite flavor, which was my Hawaiian with organic macadamia nuts on milk, to die for. It's not in your bag, sorry. They wanted me, little me, to supply their airplanes, all their flights on the West Coast going to Hawaii. The Mariners Executive Board, okay, this is in your packet. In your packet, there's a dark chocolate flavor that has sesame seeds, peanuts, and pepitas, the little green Mexican pumpkin seeds. I call it Stadium. Here's why. The Mariners Executive Board, somebody on the Mariners Executive Board, had my toffee. I get an email. Hey, you ever considered having your toffee in the stadium? No. But I was open to talking about it. So I schlepped this giant box of bags of all of the flavors down to their meeting. Next morning, I get an email. Okay, we want to offer you a space in Safeco Stadium for your toffee. Can you believe this, John? Did I ever tell you this story?
I didn't hear that part. No.
So I'm thinking, oh great, what do I do now? I needed a new dark chocolate flavor. So I threw on the nuts that my boys, my husband and my son, who are maniac Mariner fans, I'm sorry, it kind of balances out the 49er faithful, doesn't it? They eat peanuts, sunflower seeds, and pepitas when they watch ball games. So I threw it on the dark chocolate. It was an immediate bestseller. It still is. I will have people call me or email me from 5 years ago, 4 years ago now. Hey, do you have any of that stadium flavor in your freezer? Again, I couldn't pay the $20,000 entry fee to the stadium and their union labor. I couldn't work the store. I had to hire the union labor. And then the outsourcing company called Center Plate took 48% of my gross. Not my net, my gross. It was horrible. So it broke my heart. I keep that letter. I'm going to frame it someday. And then the final honor was I was invited, the toffee was invited to compete in America's Best Toffee. Somebody in Los Angeles at Taste TV, I confess I'd never heard of Taste TV. One of the judges on the 10 judge panel had my toffee, maybe because our daughter was at USC and I would send her stuff all the time. Turns out the toffee came in the top 10 overall. It came in runner-up for best flavors: white pecan, Hawaiian, stadium, mocha. I mean, how do you beat that? And then second place for packaging. Now, if I had gone back, they encouraged me to re-up again the following year. Didn't want to do that. Just unexpected delights along the way, but a ton of hard work too. You guys know that, you're business people. I had health problems after that. I couldn't continue. The last principle is practice gratitude. I am so thankful for the amazing experience. And I hope that all of you can look at, though you have those valleys and the economy has been in the tank, I hope you're all so grateful for what you get to do every day. And if you're not, if you're in one of those valleys, I recommend you step back or take a long bike ride and think about the blessing that your business is. Thanks for listening.
Okay, you have to show us this picture.
Oh, my most famous customer.
And who is this?
Colin Kaepernick.
Should I remove this from the premises? Or?
That's a note from his mom on the back.
Note from his mom. I just wanted to thank you again for that wonderful toffee you sent. Great stuff. I thought you might like an autographed photo of Colin to, what's that say?
Tack up in your shop.
Tack up in your shop. There
So
you go.
I send her toffee every couple weeks because Colin likes to have it before a game. This, if you're interested, is on Amazon, and you can get it in Italian, some Chinese dialect, and a few other languages. This is your copy, right, John?
Yes.
Thank you. Great story. Thank you, Jill, very much. All right, so I have the great pleasure to introduce to you a mentor, a friend, and it just so happens he's also my landlord, Jack Hoover.
We'll take all the individual courses they've completed. We will equate the grades in those courses to our system of grading. We take their credits, equate it to our system of grading, and calculate a grade point average. Okay, well, who would need that? Well, we have a number of different types of customers. We help colleges and universities. Edmonds Community College, we do some for them, but we help colleges and universities assess the transfer credits for some of their students coming from other countries. We also help them making decisions as to whether these students are admissible or not. Another client is immigration attorneys. And so we help process paperwork for temporary work visas. Some of them do require an educational assessment. We'll do that as well. We do some of these reports for the military, and we also do some for certification boards. Now, we'll do this for mostly foreign nationals, but some will be Americans who have gone overseas and studied and would like to get credit for what they did when they come back. So some interesting types of reports we've done, some examples. If you remember back when Princess Diana was killed in that tragic car accident, well, her personal assistant suddenly was out of work, didn't have a job. As they say over there, her position became redundant. Well, she was offered a job here in the United States on a temporary basis, and so we did a report on that person's background. In 2010, when the Deepwater Horizon oil catastrophe happened in the Gulf of Mexico, on an emergency basis, we did some reports to help get some experts in to help get that thing fixed. We've done a number of other interesting things. We have dealt with international sports coaches. We've even evaluated the world champion ping pong player. Now, yes, it was you, Robin. I agree. We also do language translations, and this is the written translation from English to or from English in the foreign language. We don't do the spoken interpretation, which some people ask, and I tend to refer to that as a dog with a different set of fleas. I just really don't care to get into that line of business. But we do things such as our very first evaluation was a love letter. Or excuse me, translation was a love letter. We do marketing materials. We help with packaging, corporate documents such as articles of incorporation, bylaws, employee manuals, contracts. We'll do bank accounts for real estate transactions or for investments. And of course we do evaluation documentation. When people send in their foreign credentials, if they're not translated, sometimes we do require that. So we'll do that as well. In this last year, we've also stepped into social media services. And so while we do social media work that impacts the local community, we also have some dynamic work that we do with international social media. Now, this business was started by my father in 1978 down in Oregon as a nonprofit entity. When he moved up here to Washington State, he wasn't able to retain that nonprofit status, so he changed it to a for-profit, and we've been operating that way ever since. Now, I came on board in '91 and have been running the business since '95. And we have a luxury in our business that we're not location sensitive. We can really pretty much do our work anywhere. Most of our clients are out of state. Now, that being said, that's an explanation of how we ended up getting into downtown Edmonds to run our business. It was the summer of 2011, and I was walking on Fifth Avenue one Sunday morning after church, and this thought came to me, what if we moved our business to downtown Edmonds? Well, the rest is history. Come February, we opened our doors. We're down by 5th and Walnut, and absolutely love being part of this organization, or this city. And so while most of you will probably never need a foreign credential evaluation, if you need help with translations or social media, that's something we can do.